Meghan Markle has been exposed as a dictator in high heels. That is the explosive, jaw-dropping phrase that is currently echoing through the highest echelons of Hollywood and reverberating all the way back to the gates of Buckingham Palace. We are talking about a terrifying leadership style that has reportedly left grown men, seasoned professionals in their fields, reduced to tears. This is not just another tabloid rumor. This is the shocking claim that is currently rocking the very foundations of the Sussex's carefully curated American life. A heavyweight Hollywood publication has decided to bring to light what many industry insiders have whispered about for years in hushed tones behind closed doors. And it forces us all to ask the ultimate question. Is the mask finally slipping? For years, the public has been fed a very specific image of the Duchess of Sussex, one built on compassion, empowerment, and breaking toxic cycles. But is the so-called Duchess of Difficult actually a frightening bully? Let us take a step back and look at the narrative that has been aggressively pushed from the sun-drenched estates of Montecito for the better part of the last 4 years. The story was simple, and it was repeated ad nauseum. Any criticism of Meghan, any hint of discord within her staff, was entirely the product of racist courtiers and the notorious grey suits of Buckingham Palace. We were told time and time again that the British press and the royal institution were colluding to smear a modern, independent woman who was simply trying to modernize an archaic institution. When the initial bullying allegations surfaced in the United Kingdom, just before the infamous Oprah Winfrey interview, they were immediately dismissed by the Sussex camp as a calculated smear campaign. It was easy for their supporters to believe that the traditional, stuffy royal household simply did not understand Meghan's American work ethic. The narrative of the victimized Duchess was sold to the world, and for a long time, a massive portion of the public bought it without question. But the tide has definitively turned, and the old excuses simply are not going to work anymore. The royal courtiers are thousands of miles away. The grey suits are no longer managing her schedule. The British press is not the source of this current tsunami of bad public relations. So who do you believe when the calls are coming from inside the house? This is the most crucial, devastating part of this entire ordeal. We are no longer talking about anonymous palace aides who supposedly had a vendetta. We are talking about their own hand-picked, highly vetted American staff. Who do you believe when 12 of her own employees, high flyers in the competitive entertainment industry, decide to risk absolutely everything to speak out? These are individuals who built their careers in Hollywood. People who are used to demanding bosses, tight deadlines, and the immense pressure of the entertainment business. Yet, they are the ones waving the red flag. They are the ones breaking their silence. This brings us to the bombshell recent report by The Hollywood Reporter. Now, for those who might not be intimately familiar with the inner workings of the entertainment industry, you need to understand the absolute gravity of this publication. The Hollywood Reporter is not a gossip rag. It is a venerable, highly respected trade publication that carries the exact same industry weight and journalistic rigor as Variety or Deadline. When they publish a story, they have the receipts. They do not print baseless rumors because their entire reputation relies on accuracy and access to the biggest power players in town. And the portrait this publication paints of the Sussex's organization is absolutely devastating. It is a meticulous, deeply researched depiction of a pervasive, undeniable culture of fear. According to the impeccably placed sources quoted in the piece, the environment within the Sussex's daily operations is so incredibly intimidating and toxic that it has spawned a moniker that sounds like something out of a psychological thriller. They call themselves the Sussex Survivors Squad. Think about the weight of that phrase for a moment. Survivors. That implies escaping something genuinely traumatic, something that leaves a lasting scar. This is not the language used by disgruntled employees who were just annoyed by a few late-night emails. This is the terminology of people who felt psychologically besieged. Staff members have reportedly been left in uncontrollable tears, utterly unable to cope with a boss who has been explicitly described by these insiders as frightening, intimidating, and completely narcissistic. We are talking about a relentless barrage of demands and demeanors that completely break down the resolve of highly competent professionals. It raises a multitude of urgent, unavoidable questions that strike at the very heart of the Sussex brand. Why is the staff turnover rate so astronomically high for a couple who constantly preach kindness and mental health awareness? Why are seasoned professionals, people who have worked for some of the biggest names in the world, so desperate to get out of the Montecito mansion. We have to examine what drives these individuals to such a breaking point. When you look at this mass exodus of top-tier talent, you have to ask yourself why these former employees are choosing to speak off the record, despite being bound by incredibly draconian non-disclosure agreements. In the entertainment industry, an NDA is effectively an ironclad muzzle. Breaking it, even anonymously, carries the terrifying risk of professional ruin and catastrophic financial destruction through aggressive litigation. The Sussexes have a well-documented history of being highly litigious, which makes the choice to speak out even more perilously. Yet, these individuals are so deeply affected by their experiences that they are willing to roll the dice just to have their truth heard. The answer to why they would take such a monumental risk, according to these explosive reports, is a clear, undeniable pattern of behavior that crosses the line from being merely a demanding boss to being completely dictatorial. Hollywood is certainly full of demanding bosses. People in this industry expect long hours, sharp critiques, and high-pressure environments. But there is a massive, unbridgeable chasm between a leader who pushes you to be your very best and a dictator who rules through intimidation, capriciousness, and emotional manipulation. A demanding boss wants excellence. A dictatorial boss wants total, unquestioning submission. And it is this demand for absolute submission, this reported culture of paralyzing fear, that has left so many broken professionals in its wake, desperately seeking an escape hatch from the Sussex payroll. But while Meghan Markle takes the brunt of these severe dictator allegations, her husband, Prince Harry, is certainly not escaping scrutiny in this rapidly unfolding drama. In fact, his role in this toxic dynamic is being viewed through an increasingly harsh and unforgiving lens. He is no longer being viewed by insiders as a strong co-leader of their philanthropic endeavors, but rather, he is increasingly described as a passive, weak enabler who does absolutely nothing to stand up for the staff being mistreated right in front of his eyes. When grown men are reportedly being reduced to tears, where is the Duke of Sussex? According to the whispers and the insider accounts, he is standing by, allowing the toxicity to flourish unchecked. Critics argue that his silence is a profound form of complicity. They point out that he has allowed his wife's vicious and nasty attacks against the royal family to be normalized, and that very same aggressive, combative energy has now been mirrored in their own workplace. If a couple is willing to sit down on global television and lob vicious, damaging allegations at their own flesh and blood, tearing down their family for a massive payday, how on earth are they going to treat a public relations assistant or a chief of staff behind closed doors? The boundary for respectful professional communication was obliterated long ago, and the staff are seemingly the ones paying the daily emotional price for it. It forces the public to look closely at Prince Harry and wonder what happened to the man the world thought they knew. Where's the man who once dedicated his life to service? Where's the prince who championed injured veterans through the creation of the Invictus Games? The man who proudly wore his military uniform and intimately understood the value of camaraderie, duty, and protecting those under his command. There was a time, not so long ago, when Prince Harry was the undisputed most popular royal in Britain, beloved for his cheeky demeanor, his natural charisma, and his seemingly genuine, heartfelt connection with everyday people. He was the relatable royal, the one who would go out of his way to make people feel comfortable, valued, and seen. Today, that man is entirely unrecognizable to the British public and to global observers alike. Instead of a life dedicated to selfless public service and lifting others up, observers now see a couple focused entirely on personal enrichment and profound selfishness. Every calculated move, every lucrative podcast, every tell-all memoir, and every dramatic docuseries seems meticulously designed to line their own pockets and elevate their own celebrity status, often at the direct expense of others. The noble, high-minded ideals they preached upon leaving the working royal family have seemingly evaporated, replaced by a relentless, grasping pursuit of Hollywood status and corporate millions. The contrast between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family has never been more stark, particularly when you look at the Prince and Princess of Wales. While Montecito is reportedly hemorrhaging staff members and desperately dealing with a public relations crisis centered on workplace bullying, Prince William and Catherine are consistently praised for treating their staff with incredible respect. The working environment at Kensington Palace and Adelaide Cottage is widely described by insiders as loyal, supportive, and grounded in mutual appreciation. The Waleses understand that their staff are the essential backbone of their ability to serve the public, and they treat them accordingly. Their team members stay for years, often decades, building rewarding careers based on trust and a shared commitment to the crown. This glaring juxtaposition highlights exactly what is going wrong in California. On one side of the Atlantic, you have a future king and queen operating with quiet dignity and immense respect for their workforce. On the other side, you have a rogue duke and duchess whose organization is allegedly characterized by fear, tears, and an unending revolving door of traumatized executives desperately searching for the nearest exit. This stark contrast is only amplifying the public outrage as these devastating revelations break out of the niche gossip columns and go fully mainstream across the United States, where the transatlantic backlash is rapidly reaching a fever pitch. This is no longer just a British tabloid issue. This is a full-blown global reputational meltdown occurring in real time. The American media, once fiercely protective of the couple, is now leading the charge in exposing this alleged workplace toxicity. Consequently, calls are growing louder and more persistent by the day for King Charles to finally step out of the shadows and take decisive, permanent action. The era of the never complain, never explain mantra seems utterly inadequate in the face of this relentless storm. There is a burgeoning, unavoidable demand from the public, royal commentators, and even political figures for the king to formally strip Meghan Markle of her Duchess title. This is an ancient and revered honor that many firmly feel she uses merely as a glamorous corporate stepping stone to advance her own financial and political interests, all while actively and continually tarnishing the historic reputation of the British monarchy that bestowed the title upon her in the first place. But the public demands do not stop at merely removing a title. Some prominent constitutional experts and political figures are now openly suggesting the unthinkable, taking the monumental, unprecedented step of removing Prince Harry and his children from the line of succession entirely through a formal act of parliament. Such a move would require immense political will and legislative action, but the fact that it is being seriously discussed on national television shows exactly how dire the situation has become. How long can the British monarchy afford to be closely associated with such revolting behavior without its own global standing being severely compromised? Every single time a new allegation drops, it splashes mud on the very institution the king is sworn to protect. Furthermore, how long can King Charles remain silent while the original explosive bullying report, compiled by his own staff, remains securely locked away in a Buckingham Palace safe? That hidden document, buried years ago, in a desperate attempt to keep the peace and protect the Sussexes' privacy, is now a ticking time bomb. The public is demanding transparency, loudly asking why the royal institution continues to protect a couple who show absolutely zero hesitation in trying to burn the monarchy to the ground. Looking at the current landscape, it genuinely feels as though we are approaching the absolute end of the road. The Sussexes' popularity is currently at an all-time abysmal low, hovering perilously between 20% and 25% in the United Kingdom. And their numbers in the United States are suffering a similar catastrophic freefall. With every single bridge completely burned across the royal family, they have isolated themselves beyond repair. We are not just talking about the highly publicized rift with King Charles and Prince William. The collateral damage extends to the wider, closely knit family network, including beloved, steadfast figures like Princess Anne and Zara Tindall. Princess Anne, globally respected for her staunch dedication to duty, tireless work ethic, and no-nonsense attitude, reportedly has absolutely no time for the Hollywood theatrics and endless victimhood narratives. Meanwhile, Zara Tindall, who once shared an incredibly close, sibling-like bond with Prince Harry, is said to be entirely alienated and deeply hurt by his actions. There seems to be absolutely no way back into the cold for the couple. They have willingly stepped out of the royal fold, and the doors of the palaces have been firmly, irrevocably bolted behind them. So, is this the definitive end of the Sussex brand as we know it? Is the world finally waking up and seeing the harsh, unfiltered internal reality of their organization? While the Sussexes and their high-priced crisis management teams vehemently dispute these claims, aggressively pushing back against the narrative and denying every single allegation, the sheer volume of anonymous accounts from both sides of the Atlantic suggests a broader, deeply ingrained pattern that may now be completely impossible to ignore. You can silence one or two disgruntled employees with a clever legal threat, but you cannot silence a massive transatlantic chorus of traumatized professionals all singing the exact same tune. For a couple that desperately attempted to build their entire new life and their billion-dollar brand on the hollow foundations of public compassion, mental health advocacy, and redefining the so-called archetypes of modern leadership, this brutal reality check is utterly devastating. They desperately wanted to be seen by the world as the ultimate progressive leaders. the empathetic, compassionate alternatives to a stiff, unfeeling, and antiquated royal institution. Instead, the heavy, inescapable title of dictator may ultimately prove to be the most damning revelation of all, completely shattering their carefully constructed facade once and for all, and leaving their Hollywood empire in absolute ruins. What do you think about this explosive new Hollywood report and the staggering allegations of Meghan Markle's dictatorial leadership style? Do you firmly believe King Charles should finally release the buried palace bullying report, or even take the monumental legislative step of removing the Sussexes from the line of succession entirely? Let me know all your thoughts, opinions, and theories in the comment section below. If you found this deep dive into the crumbling Sussex empire eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with anyone who follows the royal saga, and absolutely do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest royal breaking news and in-depth analysis. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.